So today we're just going to do short video, but this is very helpful. I was talking earlier today about what makes a world-class addiction treatment program, a world-class addiction mental health treatment. And that's my vision for NOM, but that's actually my vision for how all places everywhere treat addiction mental health. So it's not just NOM. NOM maybe is a catalyst to produce the information and the research, but eventually everyone's got to do this if we're going to emerge out of this crazy world we have right now alive. We all have to kind of become better at helping people with addiction mental health. And so what is it that characterizes world-class performance? So world-class performance world-class performance is about two things. One is the ability to achieve. So one aspect of it is achievement. So easiest understood in the world of sports. So if I'm running 100 meters, those of you who follow sports know that the world record for that I think is 9 seconds and some. 9 seconds and maybe 9.3. Any of you know the world record? I think it's like 9.28 or 9.3 or something like that. Usain Bolt. He achieved a world-class performance. But you know, I wonder how many athletes in the world, I bet you there are some, that have done even better once. They call that a personal best. Does a personal best get you any medals? Why doesn't it get you any medals?
Because usually you're by yourself when it happens.
Yeah, like, is it reliable? Is it standard? Who was checking the timer? Who started the timer? Was it your coach who just wanted to give you like a boost, you know? The reality is what's the only performance that matters is on the day of the race. That's the only performance that matters. So if someone is running 100 meters in 9.3 seconds, but they only do that once in a while, do you think they're going to win the medal? Probably not. Because they have to have this other entity, and it's just as important, and that is consistency. You have to be able to perform, and you have to be able to do it every day. Once in a while, giving it your A+ best, but most of the time having a C, is not going to get you very far in life. When the test day comes, you got to be able to perform. You're not going to be able to perform unless you are regularly doing that. So Usain Bolt, maybe his personal best is even better. He hit 3.9 or 9.3, but maybe sometime he's hit 9.2. If he can hit that regularly, consistent, that's what that means. Regularly, often, every day, or every time he practices, he can hit high speeds, then at some point, his achievement will become recognized. So a lot of people in recovery, they can stay sober for 2-3 months. They can be on their best behavior for a couple of days, couple of weeks. They can go and not use the drugs. They can even maybe not. They can have a normal, healthy conversation with their wife or their spouse or their children or their parents. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter unless it's consistent. Consistency is the topic today because we spend a lot of time talking about the things to do to achieve. So those things are things like the tapping, the flash walk, the path, the prayers, the ardas, the technical know-how, the wording, the affirmations, PMF protocol, whatever. That's all the stuff of achieving. And it's really great. Inner child work, really great. But none of it matters unless there's a consistency. Without consistency, in fact, achieving once in a while is annoying. It creates false hope. People who achieve sobriety once in a while, they actually tend to burn out their families faster. Once a family, for example, a guy goes away into treatment for like 12 months. He's been living there for 30 years, drinking, drugging, whatever. His family's used to him like that. And so what's an extra year? What's an extra 2 years? They don't know the difference. This is all they've ever known. But then he takes a break. He takes a break for a couple of months. They get a break from him. All of a sudden, they start to heal in their brain. And then when he comes back, drinking and drugging after a good period of good behavior, they don't want it. They won't tolerate it. They won't stand for it. They'll reinstate the EPO. They will say, they'll kick him out. So in recovery, actually achieving recovery but not doing it consistently more rapidly will burn the bridge. And so that's why we like to work with families, so that we can tell them that it's kind of an ebb and a flow. But let's talk a little bit about consistency. And the analogy I like to use for this is, what is the industry that we can learn the most about consistency? I think one of our counselors went skydiving the other day. So if achievement, we can talk mostly about sports. I would say consistency, the easiest thing to do is to learn from the airline industry. Because it's safer to fly in your airplane than it is to drive in your car. And do the math, do the statistics. Airplanes don't crash very often, and it's not because they're not highly complex, fragile instruments. It's because in the airline industry, if there's one crash, there was a crash in Ukraine, the whole world knew about it. Every agency, billions of people are looking at this and they're like, is this a reliable industry? It costs people billions of dollars. Billions of dollars go down the tube when consistency isn't there in airlines. So airline industry spends a lot of money on achieving high performance on a regular basis. Those airplanes cost $1 billion or more. When they crash, someone pays a lot of money. So those people, they spend a lot of time researching what makes humans less prone to error. We're all flying through our day. We're flying through life. It's a good analogy. And so I'll tell you the secret. The airline industry discovered that human error cannot be stopped. You cannot stop humans from making mistakes. Human nature is to make mistakes. Human error equals human nature. So what the airline industry did is they asked themselves, okay, so humans always make mistakes. Humans don't want to make mistakes, but you can't know everything about everything. You can't know it all. So what can we do? And they discovered something really simple. They discovered the simple technology, and it is a technology, called the checklist. The checklist, the pre-flight checklist. Make sure that make sure the tires are inflated, de-ice the plane. Gas up. Lubricate, whatever. They created checklists, hundreds and hundreds of things that need to be checked off, or the airplane won't even turn on. So the pilots, they can't even turn on the airplane without checking a box saying, are the tires inflated? Yeah, okay. Is the lubrication done? Is the plane been de-iced? They set up systems where these things have to be done in order for that airplane to go off the road. Because they have a pre-flight checklist, something that someone does every day, no matter what, they have reduced human error by at least 1,000-fold. 1,000 times less or more, such that flying at 30,000 kilometers, 30,000 feet above the earth is safer than flying than driving at ground speed. How many of you have a pre-car checklist if you drive? You have a checklist? You say, yeah, okay, I'm going to drive my taxi. I'm going to, just make sure this. No, you go on your brain. You go like, yeah, does it feel good? Yeah, it's probably good. And most of the time it is. But I was driving back from Vancouver. Lots of cars. They're just like the tires blow up. Tires don't just blow up. Usually it's like you didn't change your tires. They were too thin. No one told you. And they got too thin, or you never inspected the tire. You didn't do a walk around to see the tire bulge. In taxis you have to do it, right? And because of that, the number of breakdowns, why do you think trucking companies, so he said the trucking companies, they institute these checklists? Because they lose money. A truck breaks down, that's like money being burned, and the truck companies like making money. So what have they done? They learned it from the airline industry. They learned how to do pre-flight checklists. And guess what? You know who else learned? Surgeons. Because it really sucks. If you go in to have this breast removed and they remove this one, you go in to get this artery unclogged, and they unclog a different artery that didn't need it, because it all looks the same under the knife. I've been in surgery. It all looks red and messy. What's a clogged blood vessel? You can't tell when you're in there. Very easy to make mistakes. Should you operate on the left? The foot that you're trying to take off that has the cancer in it, it looks awfully similar to the other foot that doesn't have cancer in it. That's why time and again, you can Google it, it's a well-known thing, errors happen in surgery. So what do? They created a pre-surgery checklist. This was like 20 years ago. Surgery's been happening a long time, but only 20 years ago, things, regular things, like did the antibiotics be given? Were the antibiotics delivered? Because you get infections if you don't give someone antibiotics. Is it the right foot? Is it the right side? Is it the right surgery? Are you taking out the woman's uterus or are you taking out her appendix? The doctor can do either, and it all looks the same. So, you know what they do inside? The nurse, she stands there and she's, okay, what's the operation? It's an appendectomy. What's the patient's name? That's one of the common ones. One patient was supposed to get an appendectomy, the other patient was supposed to get a hysterectomy. Looks the same. So, it's boring. It takes 5-10 extra minutes every time. No one really likes it, but it saves lives. So when they instituted, these basic things, checklist, and they just spend 5 minutes checking the boxes, what do you think happened to errors? They're very rare now. Human error is human nature. Human error is human nature. But the thing about addiction is no one's going to want to tolerate your errors anymore. Your families, your loved ones are sick and tired of it. If you're a family member, you don't want to see it. You've seen it for 20 years. Families need to understand that without checklists, errors will happen. People in recovery need to understand without checklists, errors will happen. It is really that simple. So what is a recovery checklist? We would call it, in recovery, we'd call it a self-therapy checklist. So it stands to reason, if you develop a checklist, and every time in human history where they've done this, they create a checklist, they adhere to the checklist, you have to do it, and the result is the bad things stop happening. Every time it's been done, whether it's the trucking industry, whether it's the airline industry, whether it's the surgery industry, whether it's the police industry, because I assure you they now have checklists too. Hostage negotiations, they got a checklist. Because they know human error, it just happens. People under pressure operate with their amygdalas. They stop thinking long term. Their frontal cortex turns off. They're going to start making mistakes. So how do you get away from that? You make your self-therapy checklist. You make your bed. And early in recovery, you may just want to make an actual checklist. Probably a wise thing to do. Or with your loved one, make a checklist. Make the bed. Do your prayer. Talk to sponsor. Talk to someone. Eat food. Whatever it is, make it specific, but make it something that you actually have to check. Because if you check it all off every day, the neurobiology, the anatomy says that relapse rates will go down really low. So how simple is that for families, for friends, for patients? It's just make a checklist. The thing is that when you make a checklist of recovery items, connecting to self, connecting to others, committing to daily practice, you make a checklist. Some things on that checklist will be like weekly things, like maybe exercise might be a weekly thing. Maybe some things will be twice a week. Talk to mom. Maybe some things will be 3 times a week. But stop relying on your brain to just know what to do every day, because when you've been living 20 years not knowing what to do, it's not reasonable at all to imagine that you somehow won't make mistakes, because the stakes are high. Another patient just died, cirrhosis of the liver. I found out late last week. He's been coming a while, but never quite took it seriously. So the thing is that when recovery errors happen, people die. People end up in jail. People end up homeless. People end up broken foots. It's serious business. A daily checklist could save your life. Because when your brain goes from, instead of frontal cortex, how it should go, when your brain goes the opposite, from the amygdala, you won't know. But one thing for sure will happen, you'll stop checking your boxes. This is what we call self-therapy relapse in another video. You'll stop checking your boxes, and you will end up in mental and in emotional relapse. You'll become upset, and you won't know why. And then you'll end up in mental relapse. You'll start craving, thinking about the drugs and things. And then you'll end up in full-blown physical relapse. And so every stage, it gets harder and harder to turn it around. So you're an airplane, you're in the air, and now there's like a big Okay. Well, now all those passengers can't go where they want to go anymore. Small things won't do it anymore. Now you're going to have to divert the airplane, emergency landing. No airplane ever really likes to do emergency landing. You break the wheels, you break everything. You just try to save lives. Emergency landings, the airline industry hates those because they usually mean a writing off the aircraft. So you fly through your day. You really do. The question is, are you going to institute a sort of day checklist so that you can fly safely? Or are you going to crash every day? And then promise yourself, oh, no. No, doctor, I'm not going to crash again. I don't believe you. Just like the airplane industry, they won't believe a pilot. If the pilot says, no, I'm never going to crash again, they'll say, we don't believe you, but we believe these checklists. And always what happens is they go to the checklist and some box was not checked off. And that's the thing that did it. Because they spend millions of dollars on these inquiries to figure out why did an airplane crash. Tens of millions. Simulators and stuff. And usually it relates to human error. Usually something was missed a few times, got caught. And so what comes from that, pre-flight checklist, part of this pre-flight checklist will also be before you get up off the ground. You know what airplanes do? Who do they talk to? Do they just take off whenever they want, or do they talk to someone?
Tower.
They talk to the tower. What kind of questions do you think the tower asks them?
How about their preparations?
They ask them about their checklist. Did you de-ice? Did you gas? Did you change over the crew? Did you do this? Did you do that? Do they wait until they're up off the ground before asking? They don't let them go up until every box is checked. So if you're wise, as a person in recovery, if you as a family are wise, you will stop relying on your very fallible loved one. It's brain. It's not working right. It won't work right for 6 to 12 months. That's how long it takes for the chemical imbalances to start kind of getting better after stopping entirely. It takes a long time. Until then, you're relying on their brain, and that brain is just not reliable. It'll get reliable someday, but you'll never get there if you keep relapsing. And you'll keep relapsing if you keep relying on them inside themselves. So a wise person in recovery, you know what he's going to do or she's going to do? She's going to hold herself accountable. She's going to say, here's my self-therapy checklist, and she's going to give it to mom. Or if mom is toxic, she's going to give it to husband or wife. Or going to give it to a friend who's going to then say, okay, did you make your bed? Did you do this? Honestly, this is what we do in treatment. It's not magic, but it's crucial. It's necessary. Because slowly, after, without accountability, the person starts doing it on their own. You just start wanting to do it on your own. And that will absolutely happen. You know, tapping. Did you do your tapping? Everyone in recovery will have a couple of things. Flash. If you're at NOM, we're big on tapping, we're big on flash, we're big on a couple of these things. Did you do these things that we know work for you, that you learned in treatment? Share that with your loved one. Share that with your circle. Let them hold you accountable. And listen to them when they say, hey, you look fine, but you haven't made your bed 3 days in a row. We know what's going to happen. Please, please, please. Let's look at what's happening. And probably what's happening is the stress has increased. Recovery has not increased as much as the stress. And the person's teetering on the edge of a relapse. Early on, there's a whole video on this. Early on in the 4 stages of relapse, it takes a lot less work. So you can really help yourself by giving yourself a flight tower control, someone who knows what works for you and you will listen to. Don't pick someone who annoys the heck out of you. So if it's your wife, don't pick your wife. If it's your spouse that annoys the heck out of you, that uses it against you, don't pick them. Pick a friend. Pick a counselor. Pick someone, though, that's going to be with you a lot of the hours or available. So don't pick Dr. Gill, because Dr. Gill, as great as some may feel he is, he's not 24/7. So pick people in your life that are reliable, that you won't be bothered if they call you out on your stuff. And you will enjoy the smoothest ride through your day, because you are flying through life. You're flying through life. Your crashes are hurting so many people and yourself. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can use science. This is all science. Today I didn't talk about trauma. I didn't talk about nothing. I just talked about pure, hard, cold science of recovery. And of managing this tricky thing, human error, but it's not rocket science. This is well established. You don't have to live so messily. So, any questions about this? Comments?
कमर्शियल जिन्ने भी हैगे आ उन्हें ट्रक हो गया वहाँ पे टैक्स चेक करने होंगे या कोई फ्लैट का नहीं होया हम टैक्सी दे अंदर भी इतना डे ड्राइवर ने कितने ठोकी तो नहीं गड्डी, वो सारा टायर टूर शवा दे के गैस चेक करनी भरी है कि नहीं, वो सानू करना पैंदा। टैक्सी दे भी ते ट्रक यूनिट भी, स्कूल बस दे भी सेम है।
So why not do it on yourself? He's saying you have to do this in taxis. You know, the funny thing is a lot of people with addiction or mental health, because it's all really the same, they work in these industries. Lots of pilots are addicted. They have no problem doing a checklist for their airplane, but when you ask them to do a checklist for themselves, they're like, huh? You never thought of it. Give it a try for a month, and you'll see. You'll probably have like 10 times less relapse. Because the basic nature of the neurobiology is recovery puts your frontal cortex in control of your amygdala. That's what happens. Recovery, self-therapy, connect to self, connect to others, commit to daily practice, turns on your frontal cortex, gives you more control over your survival mind, and you just won't do those bad things as much. So stop relying on willpower. That's why in AA they say we are powerless. You're absolutely powerless over the substance. Because that circuit is hardwired through decades of repetitive use or genetics. Stop trying to control your obsession. That's only going to make it worse. You're far better to do things that supercharge your frontal cortex, that make it really, really strong, that make it kind of powerful, so that it can take control. And then you'll naturally, even if a thought of alcohol comes, you'll be able to dismiss it. You'll be able to say, no, not today. You know, the relationship with alcohol or drugs or gambling or whatever your kind of poison, pick your poison, I think they say in the West. Whatever it is, trying to control it directly it's like pulling gasoline on a fire to put it out. You try really hard to control it, it just flames. You're far better off to strengthen your mind, to do the things, even if you're having a craving, go and do something like meditate or breathe or go exercise or go talk to that guy or that lady who makes you feel really good about yourself. And that thought will lose power. If that thought if it has too much power over you, it's because you're in a state of emotional relapse or self-therapy relapse. That's the only way those thoughts could have power over you. So this checklist of things every day that you can do, or in a week, that's why we're so big on schedule in recovery. That checklist will give you the warning that when things aren't good, it'll give you the ability to know what's happening in your brain, and it'll give you the control to influence it. That's what everyone wants, right? I want to be in control of my life again. I want to be in control of, I don't want to, have this dysfunction chaining me to this chaotic existence. Well, it's as simple as checking some boxes that lower your stress, that help you, and you just do that every day, and your brain will become naturally more able to make good choices. One of which will be, I don't really want to do those alcohol. So this is called indirect control. So direct control, don't have. Indirect control, absolutely have. Direct control, no, I'm not going to drink. Indirect control, I'm going to go exercise. And in exercising, you feel better, your brain feels better, more oxygen. Why would I want to drink? I don't want to drink. It's not. I feel good. That's indirect. So thank you, G. Other comments? Is that your hand up? Questions, comments? Okay, so you can watch any of these videos with Punjabi subtitles. So those do exist. 35 minutes, shorter video today. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll be back again.